Hey y'all, it's the Slav, and I am back for that promised unboxing of Littoral Commander the Baltic. Not really so much of an unboxing because y'all saw me break the shrink and pop this lid a couple nights ago. So I'll call this one more of a component review because frankly, with a game with this many components, I've just got to check all this out myself, and I figure I'll probably do a much better job with the components now that I've reviewed them a bit than if I just pulled them out of the box and started talking about them and guessing about them. Uh, so it took me a good couple hours to go through everything in this box between all the cards and the rules and the maps. So let's get started on this. First, we will start again with the box. Pretty nice artwork on the cover here. A little bit better than what they had on Indo-Pacific. Got a little bit of joking directed at it on that cover, which had the hull number on the DDG backwards, some kind of a reverse image kind of thing. But, you know, pretty crisp, neat artwork on this. Flip it over to the back, and we'll get a look at what is inside the box here from the ad copy. You can see the two maps in this game. Not going to have room to set these maps out on my game table. I've got stuff out already, including Indo-Pacific. Although we will get a close-up look at the map hex imagery here. I was a bit under the mistaken assumption. You can see there are two map sheets or two map areas. Each of those is composed of two sheets. One for the Western Baltic, one for the Eastern Baltic. I assumed mistakenly that those two could actually be joined to give you one huge map of the entire Baltic littoral. It doesn't look like that's the case because there is a border around the entirety of each separate map board. So haven't looked to see whether those two sheets do actually line up as far as the terrain goes. But nevertheless, you've got a ton of playing area here. So you can see we have the two maps of the Western and Eastern Baltic. You got some sample images of counters and the JCCs here and the unit trackers. This game is published by the Dietz Foundation, which does bill itself as the world's first not-for-profit game publisher. They publish war games and other games that have an educational bent to them. A lot of them can be used in the classroom. As a matter of fact, they published a game on, they've republished Kremlin, and they have a few other games that cover sort of Cold War topics. So I'm trying to I'd like to get my son-in-law to take a look at them and see if he can use them in the classroom. He's a high school history teacher, and he has a big interest in the Cold War. So that's what they do. The game is designed by Sebastian Bay. He is a military affairs analyst. Believe he still works for the Center for Naval Analyses. He is also a former Marine infantry NCO, did a tour in Iraq. So a lot of what he's done here is for a Marine Corps educational audience. I've seen a few videos online of interviews of him, and he really designed this to be an educational game, getting NCOs and junior officers and field grade officers to work through some of these problems. Now, the game is set in a near future environment. I've seen it listed anywhere from 2030s into 2040s, depending on what copy you're reading. And it is sort of centered, at least the Indo-Pacific game, I believe, around the concept of the Marine Littoral Regiment. Just speaking off the cuff here, I have seen that that's a bit of a controversial design concept about how folks wanted the Marine Corps configured. So I don't know that that's something that's going to remain in existence. You know, thus Cold Warriors and people who've been looking at this stuff for a while know that every 10 to 15 years, some senior leadership has a grand plan for how they want the service configured. And then we go back and snap back and put things the way they were before, or whatever, so to speak. So, that's sort of the general design concept around the game. So let's start looking at some of the components in detail. First, we'll look at the rulebook. Now, the rulebook has expanded by about 100%, or maybe that's 200%, math impaired at the moment. But a lot of that is really because they have put in a lot more examples and they have spaced things out a lot more generously. You can see lots of nice color examples here. And the biggest change that I saw immediately is that the rulebook is now perfect bound. The previous rulebook, pretty conventional, stapled in the middle, but I imagine now that it has gone up to, I think it ends up being 104 page rulebook. I guess they went with the perfect binding. I'm always a little apprehensive about perfect binding in rolls. I'm afraid that after flipping through them a lot, they're going to start getting unglued or split. So I'll probably just have to be careful with this. But you can see lovely rule book, lots of color. In preparation for this, just sort of a, I don't know what you call it, disclaimer here or revelation here. I've owned Littoral Commander Indo-Pacific for a little over a year now and have never gotten it on the table yet. Finally, in preparation for receiving the Baltic, because as much as the Indo-Pacific interests me, the Baltic is really in my wheelhouse completely. Knew I was getting this game, so I finally did set up Indo-Pacific's meeting engagement scenario to get up to speed with the system, at least get into it a bit, so this move into Baltic would be a little easier transition. And reading the Indo-Pac rulebook, they really are easy rules to read. The concept of play, maybe a little unconventional in terms of how it's set up, in terms of the joint capability cards and the team structure. But once you get through that, and there are a lot of good videos out there already, I put together a playlist that I have hosted on my channel of Littoral Commander playthrough videos, introductory kind of videos about the system. So if you haven't checked those out, please check those out. Those will go into much better detail than my rambling here will about the system and get you up to speed on what you're looking at with this and see if this is your cup of tea. But it's, pretty unusual in terms of it is not a traditional conventional war game, but at the same time, hobbyist gamers like myself and probably like a lot of you will probably find this very interesting, especially if you want to get a better understanding of military affairs nowadays and what kind of capabilities our American joint forces and our potential enemies might have to throw against us. So just having glanced at the rule book there, actually before I leave the rule book, one thing I do want to go over, not having looked at it too closely, but it would seem that the biggest change in this game is we have what are called, where are they? Oh boy. Yeah, you have embarking units here, space values, embarkation values. So what this game adds to the system is actually embarking units and moving them while embarked on amphibious vessels. And I guess also it can be done by JCCs. So let me get, here we go. So we have section 10 of the rules, embarking. So all these Marine units that in Indo-Pacific basically just started the scenarios on the board, squaring off against the Chinese across a few hexes of Luzon or Taiwan or Malaysia. In this game, they can start embarked on the amphibious vessels. So before the game starts, in the planning phase, I imagine, you have to decide what you want to put on which vessels. Here you see with a unit tracker of the Wasp class LHD. Focus there, camera. Help me out here. So you see a space there underneath the counter icon that says embarked units. So you're going to decide which units you want on which of your gators and how you get them ashore. Those units have values for how much space they take up, so you decide you want to put your ground pounders on this ship, you want to put your artillery on another ship, and how you want to get them ashore. So that's probably one of the biggest changes in the Baltic game versus what came in the original one with the Indo-Pacific. Next, we'll look at the scenario book here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 scenarios here. I believe I counted right. You've got another meeting engagement scenario, just like you did in Indo-Pacific, except in that one taking place in Luzon. This one in Baltic takes place on Gotland. You got various scenarios of increasing complexity to help you learn the system. You've even got one here that is a non-combatant evacuation scenario. So I noticed in the scenario book here, there's a scenario where Russians are getting provocative in Estonia. So National Command Authority decides that we're going to evacuate all of our American civilians from Estonia. So you have to get Marines ashore to get these folks out of here. And the Russians can either choose to hamper that, or if I looked at the scenario correctly, they can even go kinetic on it if they want to. I don't remember all the details about how the victory points are scored on that one, but obviously if the civilians end up getting killed, you lose some mega victory points on that one. So you want to get these people out safely. So all kinds of neat stuff here. And what I really love about this system is it is a sandbox. So I've always kind of been attracted to the concept of a game that may not have a lot of specific detail, or at least not detail that isn't covered better in other systems, but allows you to just throw forces against each other, maybe even across time periods. The really observant of you so far in this video might have noticed that I have a horse and musket scenario set up there on the other edge of the table that is intruding in the view here. The Battle of Killiecrankie. Horse and musket was something that I just stumbled on at WBC a couple years ago, and then ended up buying into the entire system because the idea that you can just play out. I mean, with horse and musket now and all the annuals, I've got about 220 battles from the 30 Years' War all the way up through the Franco-Prussian War that I can fight out. And the Littoral Commander system is the same way. That's the way that Sebastian Bay designed it, so that you can just create all kinds of different problems and let the players, whether they be military professionals or hobbyists like me, work your way through these scenarios and see what's effective, what's going to work, what's not going to work. How is a situation made more difficult by changing factors X, Y, and Z, or taking this capability away from one of the sides. So that's why I really like this system and I'm really getting into it. So now let's take a look at some of the map sheets. As I said, we have two double-size playing areas, Western and Eastern Baltic. I do not have the table space to set all this out and let you look at it in its entirety. So I'm just going to pick one of these to sort of throw in here under the camera. Let you get an idea of the general artwork and scale of this. So I'll just throw the strip around here. So this is the Western Baltic southern end of the map. So we've got a lot of terrain symbology legend here. You've got boxes here for Western naval positions. This basically just is sort of a holding box for your naval forces standing off from the battle area, but nevertheless with their long-range strike weapons can still affect what is going on the map. What this map adds that I'm pretty sure I do not see on any of the Indo-Pac maps, we have some different types of in-hex features here. You have nuclear power facilities marked. There are also, I believe, industrial areas marked. I don't see them on this section of this terrain key. Or no, I'm sorry, that looks like that's ports actually. Yeah, ports are marked out. So we had some of these features on the Indo-Pac maps, but two basic quick comments about this map. First of all, the hex grid is larger sized, so that's probably why we've ended up having to have two map sheets for each map, Western and Baltic. But personally, I welcome larger hex size. Hex grid makes it easier for my fumbling fingers to pick up these counters, although when we look at the counters, you'll see that they are nice and large and pre-rounded, individually die cut, so they're going to be a joy to play with as well. But they've gone to more of a sort of satellite look to the map. Just before the end of this video, I'll move the camera down to the other end of the table where I have the media engagement and Indo-Pac set up, and that'll let you do a sort of a compare and contrast with how the graphics have, I think, been enhanced in this one. So same hex scale in this game. Each hex is 20 kilometers or about 12 miles across. And each hex, you see the color symbology around the hex border. That is what, as you can see on the train, gives you a very simple representation of what the movement point cost of those hexes are. I just watched a video recently, can't remember what channel it was on, but Sebastian talked about the analysis that went into the terrain costs, and it was pretty involved. I mean, it would involve satellite imagery and doing all kinds of analysis to determine your average gradients or slopes of the elevations in these hexes. So there's definite science involved with how these movement point costs are determined. So that'll be it for the maps for now. So let's go into these counters. First thing I noticed, we had one little strip of 3 task force markers, and found that a little unusual. There was a little bit of a discrepancy found out after corresponding on Board Game Geek with Sebastian and the publisher Jim Dietz. So it turned out the ad copy, as often the case with war games, the ad copy was a little old, stale when it came time to actually finalize the counter sheet and put them in the game boxes. So the actual counter count in this game should be, if I remember correctly, 238 counters. They come in bulk on these 2 full-size and 1 half-size counter sheets. But you have these 3 separate Task Force St. Petersburg markers. These were included because the originals that were printed on the counter sheet, actually the name bled over onto the adjacent tree area. So the printer reprinted these. Now they fit in there nicely, and I guess because of their die restrictions, they had to print 3 of them. So you end up getting 1 bonus extra Task Force St. Petersburg counter. But each task force does have 2 counters. One you can place on the map for alleviating stacking, and then the other one that you can keep on the side to indicate exactly which units are included in that task force. So because this one is a little bit smaller, I'll put this one in here. Counters in this game, excuse me, counters can represent ground units, anything in size from a section up through a company, from what I've seen so far. You also have individual naval units in the game. Most of them, from what I've seen, are either frigates, destroyers, or amphibs. We do have some cruisers on the Russian side in this game. Looks like we have did I see a Slava in here? I'm not sure. But the counters, as you can see, individual die cut, rounded corners, so no need to clip. Not that I ever clip anyway, unless something is really dog-eared after punching. So we have various ground units, proxy forces. These MILDEC are military deception counters. So these can be used either to create dummy stacks on the board. All counters, when they're placed on the board, are hidden or unrevealed. So you just have this generic American symbology on the back. Something likewise for the RF forces here. So to strike a unit or to attack a unit, it's got to be revealed. So you can either create dummy forces that are entirely composed of fictional units and, represent the fog of war, thinking there's a unit there when there's not. Or you can stack these military deception units on top of real units, and then these take the hits before the unit itself starts taking them if you launch successful long-range strikes against them. So they're basically missile sponges. You can have these guys stacked with them and to absorb some of that firepower so your real live soldiers don't get hit. And from what I've seen in the rules so far and getting ready to play that Indo-Pac game, this is a really lethal game, and I think that's supposed to be one of the lessons of it. If you get revealed and you get struck, there's a good chance you're going to be killed. The missiles are, very lethal. Depending on how much supply you want to burn up, basically each supply point you want to burn up of your different types of ordnance is going to be 1 die roll. You have here, I don't know if this is going to work through the focus, but this red 14 means the two-hit number is 14. And you'll see here in a little while the game uses 20-sided dice. So that means you have to roll 14 or less on a 20-sider. So even I can do the rough math on that. It means you have a 2/3 chance of successfully striking the target. And that little infinity symbol means that this weapon has an infinite range, at least for purposes of the playing area of the game. The purple pentagonal shape here, that's an intercept value. So this unit is also able to intercept strikes against either itself or other units with that same two-hit roll. And that subscript or small exponent 12 there is the range, so it can do it within 12 hexes. So you've got various values in this game. I'm not going to go too much into those details. It's an unboxing or component examination video. As I said, I've got a lot of videos playlisted together that go into all those kinds of details. But it's a bloody game, so you want to use those deception units. You want to make sure you stay hidden as long as possible. And once you find somebody, pound them. I think this is a game that's probably, at least when the naval units fight each other, I'm going to dig out that old copy of Wayne Hughes's Fleet Tactics, and stick with that theory or concept of hit first with the most. And you're going to have a lot of hits here. Take a look at some of the Russian units. So again, we've got ground units. You got some of the naval units here along these bottom two rows. The gray hex with the number in it, that is the movement allowance of the unit. Let's see, what else do we have here? Continuing combat, ground units can be locked in continuing combat if they survive one round. So kind of think close combat rolls in ASL, same sort of thing. And let's see. And here are some American ones. You also have SOF, Special Operations Force counters, submarine counters. The subs are treated kind of generically. I haven't really gotten into those rules. I haven't used them yet in Indo-Pac. But they are present as well. And they also have some potent long-range strike capability. And being submarines, they can put a hurting on you and make it really hard for you to respond back. So next, we'll look at some of the unit tracker cards. Each one of those counters on that counter sheet is going to have a unit tracker card. So here we have 1st Platoon of Alpha Company. This is a Marine infantry platoon. You see boxes numbered 1 through 20. Some of those boxes have little colored squares or other polygons in them. Those are the starting positions for the ordnance and the hit capacity of the unit. So this green space in the number 10 box means that this platoon starts off with 10 sort of rounds or fires of ground assault ordnance. The red in the 1 is the long-range strike ordnance. So this platoon actually does have long-range strike ability for 1 fire. It has a 2-hit number of 6 for a range of 9. So this platoon can reach out and touch somebody from 9 hexes away, or that ends up being just a little over 100 miles with, missile ordnance. But once it fires that shot, it's done unless it gets reloaded. And then the black box in the number 2, that is the hit capacity. So this platoon can take 2 hits from enemy fire before it is eliminated. And once units are eliminated in this game, they are done. There's no reorganization or bringing them back. So we've got one of these trackers for each unit that you'll have in the scenario, and matching one of those counters. And we've got all kinds of artillery, air defense, rockets, HIMARS, made so famous now for the past few years. You've got naval vessels, the DDGX, which is the next best thing coming out to replace the, actually it says it's to replace the Tycho-class cruisers. I guess we're not going to have cruisers in the Navy anymore. Don't get me started about naval construction policies. LHAs, assault ships, America-class, Wasp-class LHD, LPD. So like I mentioned before, you've got gators, amphibious assault ships that you can embark your units on and try to get them ashore. So you're going to put one of these out for every one of your counters on the board. And, unless you're getting into the really involved scenarios, you don't have a whole lot of forces on the board at one time. So this isn't the nightmare that some might imagine it to be with a whole bunch of cards. Although it does take up a little bit of a footprint, more than I guess other games would, where you're just putting a map sheet or maybe a couple player aid cards out. We will take a look next at the joint capability cards. These really are, I guess you could say, the heart and soul of the game. These represent, this is not a card driven game in the sense of, you're pulling cards, although there are some random event cards in the game. You're not pulling out cards and playing an event or using them to do things by using operation point values. These numbers on the corner of these are the command point cost to basically buy that card. So at the start of every scenario, sides will usually be allotted certain of these joint capability cards to represent either embarked capabilities that are already attached to the unit, or capabilities that are already existent when the scenario starts. The instructions will then also give each side usually a set number of command points to use to purchase other cards. And then you keep them in your hand. Certain scenarios, you may even be able to buy more cards during the scenario, maybe 3-6 turns into it, depending on how long the scenario is. And then you decide when you want to play these cards. Some of them are one-time use only. Some of them are persistent. So once you pay a cost to play them in the game, they are in play constantly. So, for instance, combat air patrols. Once you play these, they are always working. So if you get other strikes from the enemy, long-range strikes, you can play your combat air patrol, and it gives you a chance of knocking those strikes down before they even get within range of you needing to use any kind of your own air defense or close-in weapon systems. You have deep strike cards. So again, besides the strike values inherent in the units themselves, you could play deep strike cards to give you extra strike ability. You got a lot of unmanned systems. Here's your theater anti-aircraft defense. And again, each of these, also, well, not each of them, but many of them, you have the value in a triangle. If I read and examined correctly here, just on my cursory scanning, that is the space value. That's how much space is going to get taken up if you do try to transport this on an amphib or, by any other kind of lift means to get it in theater. Maritime Strike Tomahawk, you have satellite capability. Each of these cards is also color-coded, you'll see on the top, and it tells you which of the 5, I believe it is, sort of general categories the card falls into. You have strikes, don't quote me on these because I'm winging this off my memory here, but you have strikes, you have maneuver, you have information, you have C2, C3, I think now it's C5 ISR. They keep on adding more C's to the abbreviation. But you just, you get a kind of category, and then you have a command point cost. So what I did, getting ready for the Indo-Pac scenario, I reorganize all these cards according to the general category, and then I organize them according to their CP cost. So you can kind of see, okay, I've got 2 command points left to spend. What kind of card do I want to play? Do I want to put an emphasis on information or on strike ability and so forth? And then you can kind of figure out what you want to purchase with these. You got B-52s. You also have B-2s in here. Mines. There's the B-21. So all kinds of neat stuff. I mean, it's fun just to look through these cards and see all the abilities. Here's an Aegis Ballistic Defense. Now you see this card has a little paperclip icon on it. That means this is an attached JCC. It says it requires a DDGX. So you can attach this to the DDGX, and then it basically gives you that enhanced Aegis capability for interception. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these capabilities, may think to yourself, well, I haven't heard of that yet. These are capabilities, a lot of them that are projected into the near future that will be available, either given current indications on where procurement's going to go, or just that, it's going to happen just because that's the way the industry and the technology is going. So you'll have a bunch of these during the course of the game. You'll start with a bunch of them, and then you play these to give you a sort of added ability to affect the battle space. Naval deception. This is how you can purchase naval deception markers. There's also military deception. I may have already slid through. So this is where you get those extra counters that you can create dummy task forces with, or add on to your real units to become missile sponges for them. So that's how you get those. P8 surveillance. So lots of neat cards in here, lots of neat capabilities that are available. And you really can get sort of a chess game in here with, do I want to use this capability now? Do I want to wait with it? And some of these cards can sort of create a chain reaction of, well, you're going to play that card, I'm going to play this card to counter it, and then the enemy can still play another card. So it can get pretty complex. That's probably one of the basic or biggest forms of the complexity where it does exist in this system, is that card play. And as I was just kind of throwing through that rule book to start there, you saw there were a bunch of examples for that. There is also a player aid card. It has grown in size by 200% from Indo-Pacific. Indo-Pacific was just one double-sided card. Here the card is a trifold, and that is double-sided. So you've got this page, which outlines the turn sequence for you. It is much simpler than it looks on that. And I'm not trying to say this looks complicated. This was obviously designed as a player aid to make it easier for you to figure out. But there really are only usually 3 phases in each turn. Players alternate activating task forces one side to the other, back and forth. You've got your counter symbology explained here, what all the values mean. And you've also got the symbology on the JCCs there, whether a card is persistent, requires attachment, can nullify others. And here we've got sequence of play and what your core actions are. And then on the back side, we've got lots of good illustration of how you use the various types of JCCs. Again, using persistent cards, using cards to nullify other cards. So a lot of the additional components and certainly additional rulebook thickness in this game goes towards trying to make it easier to understand all those interactions between all the cards and the forces on the board. And then I believe this is actually going to be the final general component. We have the submarine operations tracker. Can't really speak to this one a whole lot and what happens in the game with it. But basically, if you do have submarine forces in the game, and you'll purchase them with JCC. Well, you may have them at the start of the scenario, or you may be able to purchase them with JCCs. Those are green-topped JCC cards with subs on them, as opposed to strike JCCs, which may be launched from subs. In those cards, the sub itself is basically just a launch platform that can't be targeted. But you can actually purchase subs through JCCs that are on the board. So you have a movement log here. You can fill out the details for that sub, about how many hit points it has, what you need to detect it, what its strike values are, and so forth. So that's it for the sub tracker. Also did not really touch on it when I was looking at the counters or the cards, but you have logistics units in this game as well. So as you're expending those fires, those rounds of ordnance, you get down to 0, you can resupply those. Basically, everything can be, reorganized or resupplied except your hit points. Like I said, once the unit's gone, it's gone. But you can supply. You can move your logistics units around on the board. They have sort of a throw range like you have in OCS. They can either throw a lot of supply, a short distance, or less supply, longer distances. That's a choice you'll make when you try to get the units resupplied. But that is a feature of the game as well. And actually, I lied. The final component in this game is, and I've already, unbagged them, and I've got them in what I'm going to use for my counter storage, cubes. Lots of cubes. I think you've got probably darn near 200 or so of them. Let me see. Yep, just over 200 cubes. Those cubes are what you place on the unit tracker cards. in the indicated starting positions to indicate supply and hit points. As you fire your weapons, as you take hits, you move those cubes down on the track. As you resupply yourself, you can move those cubes back up to indicate that you've been resupplied and have more fires available. And then also, I continue to lie, lots of dice. Here's one of the lovely red 20-siders. Each side has 5 20-sided dice, blue for the Americans and red for the Russian Federation. So those are what you're going to roll to determine all your hit values, whether strikes hit, whether interception rounds intercept those strikes, whether ground combat damage is done. So that is it for my long rambling. I think this is the longest video I've ever put together on my still relatively new channel. But I wanted to get this out, show you this game. I'm really excited about it. And as a last thing, let me see if I can slide this over without having this completely go tango uniform on me. So this is the meeting engagement. Oh, got my Batman villain hideout diagonal thing going on here. So this is the meeting engagement for scenario for Littoral Commander Indo-Pacific. This is really the introductory training scenario. You'll see we have our forces deployed here. The U.S. Marines, the blue units here, Chinese here. These obviously 2 units here, no shocker, are the naval units. So they can move on the ground. Naval units can move around, attack each other. They can attack ground units, obviously. I think my concept in this scenario is going to be to get the naval units far enough offshore that, it's bad enough that they're going to be able to strike each other because they have infinite range weapons for the purposes of this scenario on this map sheet. But I certainly also don't want them within striking range of the ground units as well. So I think I'm going to move them offshore just far enough that they get out of ground unit range and maybe either go after each other or attack the ground forces. And this one is just a simple scenario. I'm pretty sure that Gotland meeting engagement scenario, the analog in Baltic, is the same thing. You're just trying to kill enemy units. So this is what we've got set up here. You can see I've got some of my unit tracker cards here. I've got all the cubes set up with the starting values for the ordnance and hit points. Got some attached JCCs there. So the HIMARS unit also has some attached unmanned aerial systems to help for targeting. So basically, once I get done this video, I'm cracking into this and try to get myself up to speed and then move on to Baltic. So that'll be it for now. I hope you all found something interesting or useful in this video. The designer and the publisher are very active on Board Game Geek. I've already gotten questions answered very quickly there. Each game does have a separate entry on Board Game Geek. I do not think they're linked in as a family yet, although hopefully that's going to be coming around shortly. Also, they have just announced recently that they are going to be making expansion modules for Indo-Pacific. And I would guess then that's also going to be in the works for Baltic as well. So the first expansion module that they are creating is going to be for Australian forces in Indo-Pacific. So you'll be able to get them involved in the action in Indo-Pacific. They also have made a wood block upgrade for Indo-Pacific. So you're going to replace the counters if you want to with wooden blocks. Not sure I'm going to go in with that one because I'm not entirely sure how big these blocks are. And seems to me they might kind of dominate the hex space on the board. So I'm probably going to be happy playing with the cardboard counters, but that is also in the works. So this system is alive and well and growing. So I'd encourage you to check it out. And if you're at all even remotely interested in modern warfare, you want to see what exactly effect that drones and other unmanned systems have on, you have unmanned aerial systems in this game. You have unmanned ground vehicles. You have unmanned naval drones, underwater drones. So like I said, it's a sandbox. You can add these forces, subtract them, give them the one side, not the other, see how well you do against them. Lots of neat kind of questions and maybe hopefully answers you can get from playing this. So I am going to end this for now. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. I am going to try to keep adding more content. I know I've been pretty dormant for the past several months here. But I do want to try to keep putting this game material out to you. As I mentioned, I do have Killy Cranky Horse and Musket set up, so I may do some stuff with that as well. Maybe sort of a turn-by-turn, updates on the play there. Maybe even a live playthrough. Who knows? So stick with the channel. Keep an eye on it. Please subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.